Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please can I remind all participants that this meeting will be live streamed and the recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, please can they put their hand up or use the raise hand facility if they can't be seen on the screen. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, they should let the chairman or democratic officer know as soon as is possible. If they have a webcam, they should try turning this off, as it may help with their broadband bandwidth, so at least they can be heard clearly. Welcome to all members, officers and public speakers. And the first item on our agenda is apologies for absence. And I have one from Councillor Christine Cave. Are there any others?
I haven't received any others, Chair.
Okay, so just the one.
Councillor Gray said that he'd be late.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I didn't. Let me put participants up as well so I can see hands going up. Okay, so you've all had your minutes. Are you happy that I sign these minutes for the 1st of September meeting?
Happy.
Speak now or forever hold thy peace. Nick, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Before we sign them, I just wanted to know about the land to the north of Mice Fun on Bombleston. When is this coming back to committee so we can give our reasons?
I don't know, but you haven't got a problem with the minutes, have you? Sorry, Nick.
Sorry, not for accuracy, no.
No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm sure someone will give you an answer when they can, Nick. But I don't think a date has been set yet. Agenda item 3 is to receive declarations of interest. Andrew, I know you have one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Declaration of interest 2020/01504/FUL Hensel Cottage, Rowston Donnets. I'm the architect for the original scheme, so I will be withdrawing from the meeting.
Thank you. Are there any other? No hands up, no one waving or shouting at me. Okay, so that seems to be all the declarations. Agenda item 4, building regulation applications. Are you happy that we note these? Yeah.
Happy to note.
Thank you. Agenda 5 is planning applications determined by the head of regeneration and planning under delegated powers. Are you happy that we note?
Happy to note.
Good. Appeals. I'm not sure if anybody is going to run through the appeals. Marcus, are you going to say anything on the appeals? Is not.
Thank you, Chair. No, there's nothing. Obviously, there's quite a few decisions in there. There's only one decision, I should say, in there, which is a fairly straightforward extension. So I didn't intend running through that. Obviously, just members note the success rate in terms of the determined appeal. It still looks really good at 81% overall success rate with 19% loss rate.
Lovely. Thank you, Marcus. Okay, so agenda 7 is trees. Are you happy that we note that, the delegated list?
Happy to note.
Yeah, good. Okay, so agenda 8, we've got enforcement action, and I believe Marcus Bayona is going to run through it. Marcus.
That's right. Thank you, Chair. So this site, it relates to the Heritage Business Park. If you give me a second, I can just share the screen. Get it up. Here. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, so this is the Heritage Business Park. It's a site out in Lantwick Major. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, just to the northwest of the town there. A complaint was received in relation to this site and a wood chipping operation that was taking place on it. It was in this area of the site. This is the wider site here. It was in this area of the site where this wood chipping operation was taking place. Now, this was investigated and it was found that this operation was a breach of planning control. Consent didn't exist for this form of activity in this location. They did try to claim, as set out in the report, that they had the lawful use of the land as it had been used as such for 10 years, but we had evidence that we were confident was contrary to this that proved otherwise, and therefore we were confident that there was a breach. So following the identification of the breach, the site was investigated further and visited, and we found that harm was being caused by the sound coming from the site. As a result, then there was also an impact on the neighbour and amenity because of that sound. So as a result of that, it was considered expedient to serve a temporary stop notice. That was served in mid-August, and as the operations on site have ceased since that time. The purpose of this report now is to seek authorisation for an enforcement notice to follow up that temporary stop notice, and also a stop notice, a formal stop notice, so that the operations on site are ceased permanently, and we can ensure that they don't come back and they don't create the additional harm from the site. Now, at present, the operations aren't taking place. We understand that they've moved to another site. So this enforcement action is really if the action takes place again on the Heritage Business Park, and therefore authorisation has been requested for the service of an enforcement notice and a stop notice by this action. Okay.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so do we have anybody wanting to speak or debate this?
Just
No.
move officers' recommendations.
Yeah, okay, I've had a mover. I
I'll-
have a second.
I'll second, yes.
So I'll try. Are there any dissenters to this? If I don't see anyone dissenting, we will take it that that has gone through unanimously. And I think I've given enough time now. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. That has gone through, and thank you, Marcus. I think you're going to be speaking to us on Hensel later, so thank you very much. That moves us on to agenda 9. The first planning application is land to the north of Hela Pentirws. And I think Ian is going to lead us through this application. We don't have a speaker on this one. No, we have a speaker on Hensel. Okay, yes, Ian, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Share my screen. Okay, so this is an application for a residential development on this parcel of land north of Hela Pentir, and it sits in between the train station car park to the west and the street to the east, which is Lon Lindis. This is an application which came before Planning Committee in November 2019, at which time it was for 17 dwellings in outline, of which 35% would have been affordable. Since that time, when the committee resolved to approve the application, the applicant's plans have changed and they've actually secured an agreement with an affordable housing provider now, such that the development would be wholly affordable. That has resulted in the scheme being amended slightly. So if we look at the layout on the screen now, it's very similar to the 17 that were approved, or to which there was a resolution to approve previously, a bank of dwellings at the rear and some at the front. It's still in outline, so the layout shown here is still indicative only. It's likely that a subsequent reserve matters detailed application would be very similar to this, but it just to make members aware, it is actually only an outline. These are indicative elevations which are similar in character and design to the adjacent residential development. The only thing which I think there's scope for a reasonable degree of change on is there is a condition requiring an element of public open space incorporating a play area to be provided. That's most likely to be achieved by, I would suggest, these units here probably pivoting so they have a more parallel relationship to the road, possibly consolidating some of the parking westwards, and then creating a space in this part of the site here for a small play area to serve the development. In all other respects, the development's unlikely, I would suggest, to change significantly. Other than the two less units being provided. The only other change to make, or the main change to make members aware of, is that there now wouldn't be any Section 106 contributions alongside this, because of the council's policy position on not seeking contributions on developments below 25 units for fully affordable schemes. So that would no longer be happening, although obviously there would be a significantly greater contribution towards local affordable housing need. In all other respects, the site's context remains the same, not likely to be any difference in, or certainly no uplift in vehicular and traffic movements to the site. So the recommendation remains as the same, with a very similar host of conditions as to last time.
Thank you, Ian. As I said, we don't have any speakers on this, so I will open the floor up to the local member. Gordon, you wanted to speak on this?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Sorry, my office telephone is ringing. I'll just wait till that stops. Right, it stopped. Hope it wasn't anything too important. Yeah, I called this into committee last time because there was concern locally regarding this development, concerns over traffic and a number of other issues. I'm pleased to see that the application now is for a smaller number of houses. You obviously will accommodate some of those concerns I had. I'm a bit concerned that it's now changed from a mixed development to all affordable housing, but that is what it is. And obviously the issue from that, of course, is mentioned, no Section 106 provision except in provision obviously of affordable housing. I'd welcome it accommodating a play area, because I think that's very important in this part of Rous. But I still have the concerns over traffic and the concerns I said before. So regretfully, I think I still need to oppose this application. I'm not going to move to reject it, but I won't support it.
Thank you, Gordon. Okay, I've got Mark wanting to speak now. Mark Wilson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Just an observation, really. I noticed that reading this application, this was a cement site, and I just wondered about any sort of implications because of the possible location of asbestos. Has this site been totally cleared of asbestos, or is that going to happen?
I'm sure Ian will enlighten us on this, but it's been derelict for a long time, and I don't even know if this part was part of the active site. We did have a site visit there on the original planning application. Most planning committee members will remember going there, but Marcus is going to enlighten us.
As I'm probably the oldest one in the planning department who remembers dealing with this going all the way back to the late 90s. Yes, this site did form part of the Blue Circle remediation scheme, which was the original large-scale remediation of the entire area. So it would have been cleared and remediated, as were all the other parts of the housing site. So I think it's fairly safe to say that yes, this would be covered by that.
Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just add, sorry, there is a condition for remediation as well. So the applicant needs to do further work just to check that everything's in order. But as Marcus said, there's no anticipation of anything being there.
Yeah, for information, condition 12, just to help everybody.
Okay, good. Neil, you wanted to speak. Neil Thomas.
Yeah, there's a proven need across the Vale of Glamorgan for more social housing and affordable housing. We have long queues looking for accommodation, and those queues are ever growing at the moment because of the situation with private renters and etc. I therefore welcome this application and move officers' recommendations.
Thank you, Neil. I'm quite happy to second Neil's movement. If nobody else wants to debate this further, which I don't see any hands up, we will go to the vote. And as Gordon has indicated, he will not be supporting. I best run through the roll call. So I will ask myself, and I will be voting for officer's recommendation. Ben hasn't arrived with us yet, so Councillor Birch.
I think it's me as well, Councillor Avia.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Julie. You are on here, but my list is
It's not alphabetical. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll come to you when Margaret was due to come to, so I will come to you on the list. Councillor Birch.
For officers' recommendation.
Thank you very much. Christine Cave is not here. Councillor Drake.
For officers' recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Driscoll.
For officers' recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
For officers' recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hodges.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Rowlands.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Aviat.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
For.
And Councillor Wright. No Councillor Wright? No? Okay.
Not this chair.
Sorry?
Sorry, just confirming she's not with us, Councillor Wright.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. So that concludes the vote then and clearly passes. Good. So on to the next one. Lithallan Quarry, Iweni, 2020-01371 full. And Ian is going to lead us through this again.
Thank you, Chair. I've put the location plan up on the screen. This is an application at Lithallan Quarry, which is a working quarry near to St Bride's Major and Iweni. Operations at this quarry go back as far as 1948, and since that time there's been a series of consents to extend and renew working practices. The most recent consent before this was in 1999, which was for extending the permitted workings at that time and extending the quarry in a westerly direction. That application had an expiry date on it of the end of 2020, and before that expired, the council received an application which proposed to extend the working life of the quarry because it hadn't been quarried as intensively as had been envisaged around the 2000. So there's still a reserve of 3 and a bit million tonnes left. So this application proposes to continue the previously consented operations up until a maximum of 2040, which would be 20 years from now. It's important to just emphasise that there's no extension proposed to the workable area. It's the exact same area as was the case in the previous consent. It's simply a proposal to extend the lifetime within which those works can take place. So the bulk of works that are remaining is the quarrying of the authorised area in a westerly direction, as you can see on this aerial photo here. And then following that, the kind of restoration of the quarry and the restoration of the quarry faces in accordance with the remediation scheme. The benefit of this kind of application is it does give us the opportunity to update conditions on the consent. So just picking out a couple, for example, the working hours would actually start at 7 AM based on the proposed conditions rather than 6 AM, which is the current restriction. And there's additional conditions for things like groundwater monitoring in wells. So, things have moved on in the last 20 years to the point where we're able now to take account of updated information in terms of ecology and hydrology at the site. So there are some slightly different conditions which give greater control over the quarry operation than was the case based on the 2000 consent. Really the main change is just an extension to the life of the quarry. I think I've worked out the figures. It would be something like 185,000 tonnes a year over the next 20 years. That's compared with what was originally envisaged to be sort of 250,000 tonnes a year. So a bit less per year, going on for a bit longer.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Ian. Okay. Do we have anybody wishing to make any comment on this or ask any questions? No. Okay, well, if that's the case, I will move officers' recommendations. If someone would, Mark Wilson.
Peter second, officers' recommendations.
Thank you very much. And if no one wants to speak, I will take it straight to a vote. Are there anybody, excuse me, is there anybody who doesn't want to support officers' recommendation for approval? Nope, not seeing anyone madly waving at me and no hands up, so we will take it that that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, that leads us on to 2020-01504 Full Kensal Cottage. Andrew.
I'm on my way.
Thank
Good
you very
evening
much.
all.
And we will see you again.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so Marcus Bayona is going to lead us through this. Marcus, once Marcus has done that, we do have a public member of the public speaking to us, Mr. John. So once Marcus has led us through it, I will ask Mr. John to come in and make his speech.
Thank you, Chair. This is a retrospective planning application for the retention of the building at this site and completion in accordance with some agreed details. Members will recall that this came before them in May with a recommendation for enforcement action against the building because of its design when it was originally built. At that committee, it was endorsed that we negotiate for further amendments in order to create an acceptable scheme. That is now what we believe we've come to. We've got the following alterations agreed. Just bear with me a second. Here we are. So the removal of internal floor pipes and 6 internal electrical sockets, the removal of the wood burning stove and its flue, the removal of all of the Velux roof lights and replacement with glazed panels to match the agreed roof materials, the blocking up of a window in the north facing elevation, the addition of timber to the southeast elevation and west elevations, the addition of 2 stable doors serving the stables, 1 double door serving the tap room and 1 double door serving the machinery store, the installation of internal partitioning walls to segregate the individual sections of the building, and the replacement of the slate roof with a black corrugated sheet. So the building proposals now are significantly different to the building as it exists on site at the moment, and there's a condition attached to the recommendation that requires the agreed changes to be implemented within 6-month period, and that's enforceable. So this will have the effect of sort of superseding the enforcement action that was recommended previously. However, we will have the ability to take action if the agreed changes aren't implemented on site. So again, we're now satisfied that the building is significantly more in keeping with its countryside setting and is characteristic of its building of this type, being a stable and a machinery store. In terms of its scale compared to the previous approval, as there was planning permission for a building on this site, it's only 0.4 meters greater in depth, 0.3 meters greater in height, and it's 0.2 meters narrower. So we've got a characteristically agricultural or agrarian building fitting of its setting that's only marginally greater in scale than a previous approval for a building of this type on this site, being a strong justification, and therefore we're recommending approval on this site. And there's one point, which is that condition 4 hasn't been added with a reason. We believe there was a drafting error as it got moved to the committee report. So members should note that there is an added reason for condition 4, and that is to protect visual amenity, the character of the open countryside, and to satisfy the requirements of SP1, delivering the strategy, MD1, location of new development, and MD2, design of new development of the local development plan, as well as the design in the landscape SVG and TAN 12 design. Okay.
Lovely, thank you, Marcus, very much. Now I will ask Mr. John Geraint John to come and speak to us. Geraint.
Hi, good evening, councillors.
Evening. You have 3 minutes from the time you begin.
Thank you very much. Good evening, councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the item. As the item is recommended for approval by officers, I will keep this brief. As you'll be aware, the application being considered by you is a retrospective application to retain, albeit in a substantially revised way, the existing building, which was originally given planning permission in September 2019. The principle of the proposal was considered and endorsed by the previous application, a planning permission that remains extant. The revisions to the scheme are a product and response to the concerns expressed by officers in respect to the as-built as compared to the as-approved building. The applicant has worked tirelessly and closely with officers to secure and agree considerable changes to the as-built building, such that, as detailed in your report, officers considered the proposal to be acceptable in terms of its impact in visual amenity and character of the countryside terms. Changes to the building include revisions to its fabric, appearance and detail. Officers confirm that the variances in the development proposed to be retained when compared to the previous grant of planning permission are limited in scale. As the officers' report confirms, the scheme is acceptable in policy terms, in highways, in residential amenity and in other technical terms. The key issues in this proposal are as such the impact of the proposal on visual amenity and the character of the countryside. As officers set out in page 119 of the report, the variances in scale between the as-approved and as-built are not considered to be harmful when compared with the other changes proposed within this application. Officers are of the view that the resulting building would appear as an appropriately designed and scaled stable block agricultural building. Officers set out their view that the alterations to the building as built and as proposed result in a scheme that is rural in appearance, appropriately scaled and fitting of its setting. Moreover, they go on to state that the building mostly reflects the development approved by the previous and extant permission. They therefore consider the development to be acceptable in all respects, and for this reason, and given the officer recommendation for approval, I respectfully ask and urge that the application is approved in line with the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraint. If you just hang on a second, has anybody got any points of clarification? Neil, yes.
Yeah, point of clarification. It was Mr. John, at the start of your piece, you said that this building had planning permission. Can you just confirm that that the building as built did not have planning permission, and that's the reason why we're here today?
There's a slight moot point and something maybe that we would agree to disagree on. I mean, clearly we have entered into dialogue with officers notwithstanding any differences on that point. I think the point I was making is that even if this weren't approved today, there is an extant permission that would then be capably implemented to effectively create a building in this location, which is substantially the same as what's now before you for approval today.
Thank you, Geraint. Any other clarification needed? No. Okay, thank you very much, Geraint. We will go on with our debate. Who would like to open the floor up on this? Anybody? Nobody. Well, I'm happy to move officer's recommendation if someone will second it. Neil?
Yeah, I'll second officers' recommendations, but I would like to just comment on the fact that we are seeing more and more of these developers bringing buildings to us that are already built, different from what to appear in planning permission, or we're getting retrospective applications. There seems to be a lack of understanding amongst the general population that there are legal and very exacting rules on what can and can't be built, and that these things are coming to us. We really need to be looking at why these are coming and perhaps being a bit more strict and harsh with the people that are bringing them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify, you did second my...
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Thank you. Okay. Why is my... Stop it. Sorry, guys. Okay. Anybody else like to make any comment on this before we vote? No, Ian, you don't want to come back. Sorry, it's Marcus. Marcus, you didn't want to come back on any of the points raised.
Sorry, I was on mute. I can provide some, we understand that developers are in some situations carrying out development without planning permission or different to planning permission. The problem is, or not necessarily a problem, the planning legislation does allow under section 73 for retrospective applications to be made, and then we have to judge those on their own merits. So by the time it comes to us, just providing clarity really, Councillor Thomas, by the time it comes to us, we just have to assess it on its merits, essentially.
Absolutely, that's why I second them, because in planning rules, this is acceptable. But I'm still getting very frustrated with the whole.
Yeah,
with the
well,
whole
Neil, this has always been the case. I mean, we always do get them. People try it on, but we've got a decent scheme coming out of this now. I've moved it. Neil seconded it. Thank you. Is anybody else wanting to make a comment before I run it to the vote? No hands up. Okay, lovely. Is anybody against us going with officer's recommendation? No hands up, no one waving, lots of shaking heads. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes that application and obviously passes unanimously. Obviously, that is with the amendment of the reason for condition 4. You are all happy that that is the case? Yeah, good. Okay, so that leads us to agenda item 10, which I don't have, and all that's left for me to do is thank you all for coming to Planning Committee tonight, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening. Night.
Thank you all.
No, no,
Good
thank
night.
you.
Good night.